So we're in bit of a technical delay there, but a very good afternoon to everybody. Welcome back to the We Are Careers show. Hopefully you can hear us, you can see us okay. Please let us know in the chat if you can't. We have had some minor technical hitches, very similar, kind of, you might sense a recurring theme there, hopefully not one to continue. But a very warm welcome, very warm 2022 to everyone. This is the first time that we've seen people since the end of last series, and we're back, and really pleased to be back. So for those who haven't seen the show before, this is We Are Careers. My name's Chris Webb. I'm a higher education careers professional and a registered career development professional with the CDI, and I'm joined as always by my fantastic co-host, meet Sabiha. Now Sabiha, it's been a kind of a rocky start to the year for us, hasn't it? So how are things kind of going with you?
It has been. Oh my God, it feels so good to be back here. And I'm loving the fact that we have got one of the biggest influencers within the career space joining us today for our very first show for season 5. So I'm just super excited. As you mentioned, yep, we had a bit of a hiccup. Oh my God, talk about getting every bug and virus that I could possibly in January. But I'm good, I'm healthy, and I'm excited to be back. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm known as Meet to Be, and I work internationally, helping young professionals get unstuck and get back into career flow without the stress. And I'm also the creator of the I Am Thriving Career Coaching Program, where I teach coaches how to help their clients transform their clients' careers challenges so that they can achieve their career goals. Now, if you're watching live with us now, as I know many of you do, pop in the chat box, come and say hello, hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube, press that subscribe bell to make sure that you don't miss any of the sort of season that we've got coming up, because we've got some phenomenal guests coming up this season. But also as well, if you're watching on the replay, don't feel that you can't take part. Again, take part in the chat box feature if you're part of the Facebook community, and do let us know. We're getting viewers from all over the world right now. So please do let us know, where are you watching from right now? Now, we always like to start the show with a celebration, and each show we like to celebrate the newest members of our community, our registered career development practitioners. And so it gives me great pleasure. And if you hear a name, or perhaps it's your name that you're hearing as a shout out, pop into the chat box, come and say hello, or tag that person that the name that you hear, so that you can introduce yourself. Let us know what area of the CEIAG you work in. And if you do hear a fellow colleague's name on the list, tag them so that we can celebrate together as they become new registered career practitioners. So here we go. We've got Joanna Turner, Cindy Shakya, Claire Desai, Joanne Ledger, Nomita Nair, Karen Mitchell, Michelle Pickard, Mina Anand, and Anthony Rayleigh. So congratulations. Drop that celebration clapping emoji in the chat box feature now. Welcome. So Chris, we're going to be talking about the career guidance guarantee today. Is that right? So what is that, and why are we talking about it today, and why have we got Professor Hooley with us?
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Sabiha. And yeah, equally, we're kind of keeping an eye on the comments on the chat thread. So do keep them in. If you're watching live, let us know. If you hear where you're watching from. Can you hear us okay? All that sort of stuff. Do try and engage with us in the chat. If you're here live. So yeah, we've started this series with, I guess, a topic that was originally intended for last series, but actually, given kind of recent comments and given recent sort of things that are happening in the career specs, particularly the Education Select Committee kind of review of CEIAG, there's probably not been a better time to kind of launch a series with this type of episode. So we're going to be talking about the career guidance guarantee. We're going to let our guests explain a little bit more about what that's about once we get started. But first of all, introductions. Sabiha's already given a lovely warm welcome to Tristan, but perhaps Tristan, if I can come to you first, let you introduce yourself to any of our viewers who are watching and may not know about your work.
Well, hi everyone, I'm Tristram. I work as a researcher specialising in career and career guidance. I kind of divide my time between University of Derby and the inland Norway University, because there's lots of exciting things going on in careers in Norway. And I'm also kind of always trying to get involved with politics and push politicians to care about career guidance a bit more than they typically do.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tristan. And I think this kind of leads very nicely onto what we're going to be talking about in the show today, which is all about the Career Guidance Guarantee campaign. And I guess for kind of those of our viewers who are watching who perhaps haven't, it's kind of passed them by, or they've not really had much oversight of the Career Guidance Guarantee campaign, which started last year. Could you just tell us a little bit more about it and kind of what it's there for, really?
Well, I mean, probably if you're watching this program, you're not going to find this tremendously controversial, but I think would be a great idea if everybody in the country had the opportunity to access career guidance. And as you'll be sort of well aware, that is not the case. There's kind of middling access to career guidance if you're in schools. There's probably fairly decent access if you're in university. There's almost no access if you're in work, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it, as it's where we make most of our career decisions. So a group of organisations that are involved in careers, so the Professional Association, obviously CDI, and then the AGCAS, which is the Association for Higher Education, and a number of other bodies as well, research organisations and so on, came together and said, look, we really need to do something about this. And ultimately, that's about putting pressure onto government. And so we came up with this idea of a career guidance guarantee, which is essentially that everybody throughout life should be entitled to access career guidance. But we then had to think about, well, what does that mean? And to recognise that probably looks a little bit different how you get access to career guidance if you're in school, if you're in a college, if you're in a university, and so on. So that's what the career guidance guarantee is. It's a statement that everyone should have career guidance. And really, it's a way of campaigning to government and saying what their policies should be in order to achieve that.
Tristan, I just want to jump in on there, which is that, I met you a few years back, and I remember, you were giving a presentation. I think, if I remember rightly, it was at a CDI conference. And, I felt your passion as a practitioner, as somebody who's working in the sector. What got you? I mean, for viewers that don't know, and even I'm curious about this, what makes you so passionate about this? Because you are.
Well, I mean, I suppose I started, I got into this field by accident and partly through sort of a series of bad, well, not bad career decisions, but unexpected career decisions that led me in unexpected directions. And I suppose as the more I thought about it, the more I thought that actually career is such an important thing. It's really so kind of crazy that it's left for people to just kind of, stumble around and find their way to it. And really, we should be trying to help people to think about their careers really from a very young age, but also right through their life, because career is obviously about how we find work and how we choose education, but it's much bigger than that. It's actually how we spend our lives. And when you think about it, what could be more important than all of those decisions that you make about how to spend your life, about whether to stay late in the office and do a bit of extra work, or go home and see your kids, or whether it's to work hard on your studies or go out drinking with your mates. They're career decisions. We're making career decisions all the time, but nobody actually ever tells us that. Nobody kind of gives us the chance to think about that and think about how we want to manage it. And I just think there's a huge opportunity for us to, within the education system, and then after you leave education, so within HR and employment systems, to give people the more chance to think about who they are and what they want to do with their life, how they want to contribute to society, and so on. And that just seems to me really the most important thing there is. And so it's always depressing to me that politicians give it so little attention.
No, I think it's a really good point. And I mean, you've mentioned there obviously quite clearly about why people should care and why you specifically kind of care about the guarantee. I think though, coming back to kind of what you said about that interest in sort of politics and policy and how that translates, we've had kind of somebody mention in the chat around, yes, we've kind of got the National Career Service 18 upwards, but certainly when we perhaps compare the English system to maybe Scotland and Wales, it feels a bit more piecemeal, a bit more fragmented. So I guess kind of from the perspective of the work of the Career Guidance Guarantee in terms of what's happened so far and what maybe the long-term kind of aspiration of that campaign is, would you be able to kind of talk to us a little bit more on that front about, I guess, where really the campaign is hoping to end up from a sort of policy perspective?
So I think the first thing to say is that I'm not saying, and I think people involved with the guarantee and not saying that everything in England or the UK is terrible. That there's lots and lots of good stuff. I mean, we've been doing careers for like over 100 years in England, and we've figured out an awful lot of things about what works, and we've got an awful lot of people who do care about it and do some really fantastic work. So that's the first thing, is we're not starting from nothing. But if you look at our systems, they're very fragmented. There's lots of overlaps. There's lots of places where the same service is offered in slightly different ways to the same people. And then there are lots of gaps. So somebody in the comments mentioned the National Careers Service. Well, you know, I think the National Careers Service is a fantastic innovation. I'm chair of Advisors Board, which is a National Careers Service prime contractor. You know, I think we do some fantastic work through that. But there are also large groups of people who are quite left out of the services that the National Careers Service is able to offer. And, you know, and one of the groups that seems most obvious to me is people who are in work, people who perhaps are not at the very bottom of the economy, but people whose life could be better, people whose skills could be better used, people who might be wanting to make a change in their life. Where do they go to get support? And you know, similarly, we could look in other places. You'll find that the picture in schools is quite variable. Some schools fantastic, doing a great job. Other schools really not engaging with this. So what we're trying to do with the Career Guidance Guarantee is basically, to use a Boris Johnson word, is to level up, is to take what is good in some places and make sure that everything comes up to that standard, I think.
And Tristan, I mean, you mentioned sort of like 100 years that we've been at it. So I'm glad that you've mentioned that, because we're going to be talking about that coming up shortly in the news section. For those of you that are watching for the first time, did anything that Tristram's shared resonated with you? You know, Tristram talks about his own journey and how he kind of sort of fumbled through before he found his sort of passion. Is that something that resonates with you personally as a professional? Did you end up in this sector by accident, similar to the sort of kind of journey that Tristan took? If you did, let us know. Use the chat box feature to share your journey and your story. Remember, this show is as much about our guests as it is about you. We're looking for that engagement from our viewers, even if you are watching on the replay. So please do join in the conversation. And so, you know, a couple of things, Tristan, that you sort of kind of picked upon, and I want to take, you know, sort of, you know, it's clear, and I think anybody watching, that you are passionate about this subject. And so there might be other professionals watching right now, and they might be feeling, well, you know what, Tristan, it all sounds great and fantastic and wonderful, this sort of kind of big picture, but you know, I've got so much on my plate. You know, perhaps it's somebody that's working in an educational establishment, or maybe it's somebody that's a private practitioner who is just time poor, doesn't have the time to sort of kind of think about, you know, these things, because they're just so bogged down with the day-to-day of the role that they are doing. So what would you say to them, Tristan? Somebody who's watching right now who's feeling as if, yep, I get what you're saying, but I don't have the time. What, you know, why should we as professionals, regardless of where we're working and who we're working with, care? And what, you know, sort of, yeah, why should we care, firstly?
Well, I suppose, you know, the first thing is that I'm, you know, totally sympathetic to that, and recognise that people, well, the most important thing you do to advocate for career guidance is to do your job and do career guidance well. And I think also, hopefully, to tell people about it and to, you know, serve your clients' needs and so on. So, I mean, that is the core of it. I mean, I'm not suggesting for a moment that people should kind of slack off on that to concentrate elsewhere. I mean, that's not to say that we can't kind of combine those things a bit, in that often, if you're doing career guidance with somebody, if you're having a conversation with somebody, you will run across an issue where government policy is sometimes the obstacle, the primary obstacle that they might face. And sometimes that's, you know, a reason why I think career guidance practitioners need to be much more willing to be advocates and to speak up and to say, no, this isn't working, this system isn't working, and so on. But in terms of the career guidance guarantee, we're not actually asking for an awful lot from people. We want people to sign it, we want people to be aware of it. If you feel really energetic, you could write to your MP and encourage them to think about it. You know, there's lots of things that people can do. But I think what we do need to recognise is that people's lives and people's careers are entirely bound up with policy and politics. And that's true, doubly true for those of us who work in career guidance and who have to kind of work to government contracts or work for public institutions. And so, you know, we can't ignore this stuff. I think it's a sort of a mistake to think you can kind of put it to one side and let the government get on with whatever they're doing. You know, we saw in 2010, when the government decided that it didn't think career guidance was useful, it, you know, with the stroke of a pen, it massively decimated what was there then. So we need to be much more assertive about it, and that's a job for, you know, people like me and the heads of professional associations and so on. But it's also a job for every practitioner and everybody who cares about this.
And I think that links really nicely in terms of kind of one of the comments we've had from one of our LinkedIn viewers actually around, I guess, sort of this, general kind of, not necessarily cynicism, but I suppose sort of almost feeling a little bit jaded about some of the stuff that's happened maybe within the political spectrum, you know, the past kind of decade or so, as you say. So our LinkedIn viewer said, you know, do you think politicians even care really what job people are doing or their job satisfaction? You know, it seems sometimes perhaps they only care about getting people off unemployment figures, perhaps in reference to the recent, you know, kind of way to work policies in terms of trying to get people off unemployment by the summer. So, and the criticisms of that, I guess it's been very directive. So, you know, in terms of kind of a response to that, you know, do you feel that that's kind of maybe quite fair to feel sort of jaded about that? And I guess how things like the career guidance guarantee can sort of help to mitigate that or help to kind of get people mobilized on those sort of issues?
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to come to if you want enthusiasm for the government and belief in the current crop of politicians. But I mean, what I can say, I suppose there's sort of two answers to that. I suppose the first thing is, you know, at the end of the day, politicians care most about what they have to care about, and that's what people raise with them and say with them and push them to do. And so, you know, I don't kind of have a great belief that politicians, you know, of any party really will sort of spontaneously care about the kinds of things that we all care about. I mean, I think we have to believe in a sort of an active citizenship and that we have to be out there trying to kind of engage them. But, you know, if I was being slightly less cynical, I might say, well, if politicians don't care about the quality of work that people have, if they don't care about the quality of life that people have, if they don't care about, you know, whether people feel that their lives are meaningful and worthwhile, then that's a pretty dangerous sort of direction that they're going down, because ultimately, you know, people are going to elect governments that make their lives better. You know, and of course it's important to have a good sort of set of support for people who are unemployed and to help them to get back into employment. But I think employment policy has to be an awful lot more than that. And I've been quite influenced by some of the ideas that have come out of the International Labour Organization, where they talk about decent work. So the ILO, the International Labour Organization, is a part of the United Nations. So it's an international agency. And they're saying, well, when we're talking about work, we can't just be talking about getting a job. We've also got to be talking about what that job is. So it's got to give you decent pay. It's got to give you opportunities for training. You've got to have decent healthcare, a chance to take a holiday. You know, these kinds of things. And I think we should absolutely be making that sort of conversation about the quality of work a political issue as well as just the quantity of work.
I love that, Tristan, what you've just sort of kind of shared there. And I would sort of kind of now I'm going to get on my soapbox. And the thing that I would say to anybody who's watching right now, by the way, I just want to say to those of you that are watching live right now, thank you for the comments. Keep them coming in. You know, drop your questions in there. You know, we've got Professor Hooley with us for the next sort of 10 minutes or so. So you've still got time. And even if you are watching on the replay, here's what I will say. Do leave your comments and feedback to the team. Chris and I, as well as others behind the scene, as part of the show, will sort of kind of respond and react to your messages. So please do continue to comment. And for those of you that are watching who are part of the CEDI, you will be happy to know that a recording will be made available in the Facebook community, but also as well the show resources doc, where you will get access to everything that we're kind of talking about here today that Professor Hooley's mentioned. Also as well, access to the news stories, the links, everything will be made available. So if there's one reason why you should join and become a member of the CEDI, I can't think of a better reason right now. And sort of kind of what coming back to some of the comments that are kind of coming through, I just want to bring in sort of Mark Smith, who says that if you knew at the start of your career in careers what you know now, would you still be doing the same role? He's saying 21 years on for me, and the constant battle to raise the profile, quality and respect for careers doesn't take its toll. And so here's what I'm going to say to each and every one of you who's watching, who's watching the show. And this is what I say to myself every time I sort of start my day is, what positive impact can I make? And do I care enough about serving my clients? And it doesn't matter who those clients are, whether it's you're working with young people, whether it's you're working with older workers, whether you're working with women coming back into the workforce. Okay, do you care enough? Because here's the thing, if you care as a career practitioner about the quality of work you produce, I promise you, you will create positive impact in the lives of the people and the community you are serving. And I have seen this time and time again. And perhaps that's all we do as career practitioners. There's a small niche, there's a small group of people that we help and serve and whose lives we improve as a result of the intervention that we give. Anyway, that's enough of me on my little soapbox then, Chris, but I know we've got a couple of, I think, another question or so that we want to put to Professor Hooley before we say goodbye to him. So, Chris, what do you want to ask?
I think the individual versus collective argument is really, really interesting. I think, Mark's kind of point leads really nicely onto our final question, really, which is that idea that, yes, a lot of us probably take, a huge amount of pride in what we do sort of individually, and kind of thinking about, making that positive impact, like you say, many, many small positive changes that kind of add up to something bigger across the sector. But I think, policy and that idea of collective action is definitely something that's coming back of interest in the chat. We've had Mark's comment there about, constantly plugging away and perhaps, how we can do that better, collectively. And also one of our LinkedIn users who's come in and said, is there stuff that the career sector can maybe learn from kind of other sectors that have been more successful in influencing government policy to maybe attract funding and importance? So I think, that's something, Tristan, for us to end on perhaps, is just to kind of get your perspective on moving forward the career guidance guarantee, not just maybe what individual practitioners can do, but, is there more of a role for all of us as individuals from a lobbying perspective, and how maybe does the sector kind of leverage that to make more of an impact on policy? Someone's also put, can we learn from Norway? So another, perhaps not necessarily answerable right now, but linked to that, I guess.
I suppose, it's difficult to say, isn't it? What is it that makes some sectors do better than others? Well, you would have thought, for example, that like nurses at the moment will be having, pretty easy time of it, as we've all relied on them so much, and yet, I was listening to statistics the other day saying that salaries in the health service have gone down about, I think it was like 3% over the last 10 years. So people are actually worse off than they were a decade ago. So, I think there's some of these issues are endemic across the public sector. And ultimately, we need to think about, we need to obviously think about who we elect and what they're offering and what kind of economy they're going to promise us. But broadly, I think what we can learn is that all organizations and professions that make more noise and that convince people that they're more central to, the core of policy get further. And I think basically that's about being a lot more difficult and being a lot more willing to be difficult. And, and if I was thinking about what we've managed to do with the career guidance guarantees, we've managed to draw together all the main organizations that are interested in this, and that ranges from the higher education and private practice sort of organizations, employers, through to people who are working with unemployed young people and so on. We tried to pull a lot of these different organizations together so that we can speak with one voice. Now, there's then the question of what we say, and I think what we're asking for is eminently reasonable. It's not a radical thing. It wouldn't require complete renegotiation of government budgets or anything. There's lots of tweaks. There's probably even savings in what we're proposing in terms of just spending money more effectively. Now, if it was down to me, I'd be probably arguing for a lot bigger. And I think in order to argue for bigger things and argue that career as a theme should be at the heart, I would love to hear a political party or a government say, we are the government for that will promise everyone to have a fantastic career. I mean, that would be amazing. But in order to get there, we've got to raise our profile, and that's about really being prepared to talk to MPs, to join professional associations, to put pressure on people, ultimately probably to go out on the streets, to march for things. And the other thing I think is to find common cause with other people who want similar things. So teachers, other groups that are also experiencing problems in terms of being able to deliver the services, the helping and caring services they want. We should be finding common cause with them. And I've seen Marcus asked about the lack of a union. I mean, obviously, there is Unison is probably the biggest union that represent careers advisors, but you will find that because we're very fragmented, then you will find different unions representing us rather than one single union for careers. But I definitely would advise that people should join the union if they're in a place where there is a union to join. So all of these things, basically shouting louder, being bigger, being more awkward, being more difficult, and arguing that careers is really important and not something that should be forgotten.
And I think that's a great segue, to be honest, for our next episode, particularly off the back of kind of what Mark said, maybe linking that back to professional associations like the CDI. So in 2 weeks' time, we are going to be speaking with David Morgan, the chief executive of the CDI, and Karen Parry, our new CDI president. Very much not just around the 100 years of careers, which celebrations, which were alluded to a little bit earlier in the programme, but also actually around, the CDI's new draft strategy and some of the stuff that Tristram's just mentioned around how we can shout louder, how we can kind of lobby more effectively, get voices heard. So, it's certainly something that, the CDI as an organisation is working towards. But, I'd agree that it's that collective, and it's, how we do that, how we make ourselves sort of loud, difficult, and present, I guess, visible to the people that are making these decisions. So Tristan, thanks so much for kind of giving up your time. If you've been watching this episode, you've been interested in hearing about the Career Guidance Guarantee. Again, we're going to be keeping all of the links, all of the references to the Career Guidance Guarantee in the show resources document that's going to be going out on the Facebook community of practice shortly after the show. Along with that is also going to be our news section, which is just coming up. So I'm going to pass over to Sabiha for this week's CDI news. What's kind of out there, Sabiha? I think we've got a packed news schedule, if I'm right.
I have. I'm going to be super cheeky. I know usually I do my top 3, but I'm going to throw in a few extra ones there as well. But I just want to quickly come into the comments section, which is John Morrison just said, solidarity and power to the people. You have riled Tristan people up. People are ready to go out on the streets and march. And sort of speaking of which, okay, if someone has been inspired, as I'm sure they have been by listening to you speak, okay, what platform, where is it that they can sort of kind of connect with you and get in touch with you? Because I know you're very active on social media, but if there was one platform that you had to pick, Tristan, which one would that be? Where can people find you and follow you?
Yeah, probably the main place is to look on my blog, which is called Adventures in Career Development. And it's a little bit moribund at the moment, but I will be back to it as soon as I get a minute's headspace. But I mean, you'll find me on pretty much all the platforms somewhere. So come along and follow me wherever.
Fantastic. So you heard that, everybody. Head on over to his blog. And I have to say, I do sort of kind of follow his blog, and Tristan always has something useful and interesting and insightful to sort of share. And is there anything in particular, Tristan, that you've got coming up that people should know about? Perhaps maybe you're giving a presentation or you do webinars, so that if people want more of you, where can they get more of you, Tristan?
Actually, I'm not too busy with this sort of stuff at the moment. I think everyone's still a bit trying to figure out what they're doing post coronavirus. But if you are interested in this kind of stuff, then we produced a book this year called the Oxford Handbook of Career Development, which is a kind of an academic book, but I think might be of interest to people. So that's I suppose what I'm plugging at the moment is the Oxford Handbook for Career Development.
Fantastic. So you'll find it in a good bookstore or the usual sort of kind of suspects online as well. So thank you for that. And so heading in now to the CDI news, I'm going to whittle my way through. And as Chris mentioned, okay, all of what I'm going to be talking about, as well as the news that Chris will cover, will be made available in the Facebook community. And so that means you do need to be a CDI member to get access to the show's resources. And if you haven't already joined, honestly, for less than the price of a Starbucks coffee, or a frappuccino at least, a week. You get tons and tons of resources. So do head on over to the CDI website to learn more about how you can join and become a member. So this month we've got the National Research Conference taking place on the 24th of February, and bookings are open. And this research conference is held by the CDI, AGCAS, ISEGS and NISEG. And the focus this year is going to be on research methods to enhance inclusive practice, and in particular using technology to support research. Now the goal is to inspire all practitioners to increase their confidence in conducting research and adding to the evidence base for the profession. Now the conference runs from 9:30 a.m. till 3:30 p.m. and CDI members can attend at a discounted rate. So another reason to join the CDI. And also as well, for those of you who are doing research right now, who have just completed some research, perhaps you did an MA or some other kind of qualification, they will be holding a poster session at the conference. And they want to celebrate your research and talk about how this has informed your own and other people's practices. To find out more, the link will be included in the show's resources. We've also got the 2025 strategy launch webinar that's taking place on Tuesday, the 15th of February, and that's going to be between 12 noon and 1 p.m. And we're going to be talking a lot more about that, as Chris mentioned, in the next episode. So do look out for that. Also, the CDI's digital skills assessment for career practitioners, known as Control, was launched in December, and the webpage for CTRL, the CDI's digital skills assessment for career practitioners, is available now. It's a free self-assessment tool for practitioners to review their ability and confidence when it comes to using digital methods. Now, the assessment is based on digital skills in the workplace scenario and helps pinpoint both strengths and development areas. And plus, there's a wide range of practical suggestions, resources, links for enhancing digital skills. And then finally, we've got the new research which has been added to the CDI diversity resources. So the CDI added a new resource to the diversity resources page, so do check that out for those of you who are interested in looking at developing equality, diversity and inclusion in your practice. Now, there is a report from Indeed, it's called A Time for Change, which talks about diversity, inclusion and belonging in the UK workforce, which is something that we've kind of been alluding to today. It explores the current status of equality, diversity and inclusion in the UK's workforce and the actions needed to bring about effective further change. Whew, okay, that's me done. Chris, what have you got from the wider community of the
Thanks, Sabiha. Yeah, it's always an issue, isn't it? I think we've been off the air for a while. Now we've been back on. So much stuff has happened in the CDI and careers world. I've just got 3 top picks for this week. One is kind of probably unsurprising. National Apprenticeship Week 2022 this week. Lots of great stuff happening online, including some links to kind of what's going on, but also just a reminder to kind of follow that hashtag NAW 2022 on Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. Have a look at some of the great stuff that careers practitioners are doing across the sector, relating to kind of celebrating apprenticeships and apprentices. So some great stuff there. The second thing is a new report that's just come out this week called the Careers 2032 report. So this kind of comes as a bit of a collaboration between Handshake, AGCAS, the Institute of Student Employers and Wonky, so kind of quite higher education focused. And it's all about what the future of higher education career services could look like. Now, people might be thinking, oh, I've got a bit of stake in this as I currently work in higher education careers, but there's a lot of great lessons in there that can be applied to other parts of careers education as well, particularly in terms of things like leveraging technology, personalization, kind of trying to scale sort of the careers delivery that we have already. So there's some great lessons in there, regardless of what sector or what kind of area of careers education you might work in. And then the final kind of item really connects to what we've been talking about today. So it's just a reminder that at present, the Education Select Committee are doing a kind of all-encompassing review of CEIAG in England. They're looking basically at a number of different factors, including how kind of careers is kind of funded more generally, what the kind of quality of what's being delivered looks like right now, what could potentially be done to improve it. And they're looking for stakeholder feedback by the 17th of March. Now, the reason that I think it's really, really important that everybody considers putting in some evidence for submission, we saw an article on the Teach First Careers Network, I think earlier today or yesterday, from Robert Halfon, the MP, all about kind of technical education. And a lot of the rhetoric that comes back is around, oh, there's problems with snobbery, you know, within kind of careers advice. There is stuff that he mentions around underfunding, but I think a lot of careers advisors this week have been quite kind of perturbed by language around, you know, the issue is maybe careers advice needs to be modernized, you know, and perhaps careers professionals aren't doing enough, which I think, you know, for a lot of people kind of hits quite hard. So that idea of, you know, if you want to challenge that, if you really want to kind of basically showcase to MPs like Robert Halfon what's going on the ground, you know, and where maybe those gaps are and why those gaps exist because of, for example, lack of funding or funding in the right places for careers and apprenticeships, then please do share your thoughts via the submission for evidence. We've included the link in the show resources document. But equally, you'll find it online. If you Google Education Select Committee Careers Review, you'll find all of the information there. So if you've got time before the 17th of March, please do share your views. Massively, massively important for us as a sector. So that really kind of brings us to the end of today's show. As mentioned, we're going to be back in 2 weeks' time on the 23rd of February, again at 1 o'clock. And we're going to be joined by CDI Chief Executive David Morgan and new CDI President Carolyn Parry to talk all about the 100 years of careers celebrations. 100 years of careers services in England. So fantastic.
And Chris, am I right in believing that they've just announced as well when the celebration is taking place? So should we drop that date on as well?
Yeah, we'll leave that for next show, if that's right. It's been a bit of a teaser, but many of you will have seen that on social media. We have got a date for that in the middle of June for a particular physical in-person 100 years of careers celebration. So
I love the way you're teasing us, Chris. I love the way you're teasing us. It's like that. It's a reason to. If that's not a reason to come back and watch us in 2 weeks' time, I don't know what is.
Thanks, Sabiha. So that's great. That brings us nicely to the end of the show. Nice lead into 2 weeks' time. So only thing that remains to be said is a huge thank you to Tristan for joining us today. Big thank you to Sabiha, my wonderful co-host, and a massive thank you to everybody watching live or on demand. We hope you'd enjoy the show, and we hope to see you in a couple of weeks' time. Have a good day.